We have a 26-year-old woman in the morgue, a father recovering from wounds, and 3 gunmen still roaming the streets. How deep does a grudge have to go to unload 50 shots in broad daylight next to a sanctuary while a toddler sits in the back? Before we dive into the details, go ahead and smash that thumbs up button and let me know your take down below. Also, make sure you hit follow on True Crime Tragedies so you stay locked in for every update. Friends in the circle knew Gabrielle A's as Ye, while others simply called her Gabby. At 26, she was the boss of her own Chicago beauty shop, grinding hard every day to make sure her customers walked out feeling flawless. Those close to her described a gentle soul who was laser focused on securing a real foundation for the years ahead. Rewind to August of 2024, and Gabrielle made a post that really showed everyone what she was about. A user asked a hypothetical about what you would do if your man got ambushed by a half dozen guys, and Gabrielle had a ready answer. She said she wasn't violent by nature, but warned folks not to test her limits. That statement spoke volumes. She didn't go searching for drama, yet she would defend her loved ones without hesitation if the situation demanded it. In December 2024, she welcomed a daughter into the world, and motherhood instantly became her entire universe. Her days were no longer just about her own wants and needs. She was laying the groundwork for a secure, loving home for her little girl, which brings us to December 20th, 2025. Gabrielle threw a massive bash to mark her daughter turning 1-year-old. She flooded her feed with photos, calling the kid the most beautiful child on earth and pouring out her heart. Anyone looking at her profile saw a glowing mother doing everything right for her offspring. However, a couple of months prior to the party, Gabrielle did run into some trouble with the law. In September 2025, police picked her up for shoplifting items worth less than $300 and taking lost property valued under $500. Yet, by September 23rd, 2025, she announced online that the judge threw the case out. She was thrilled about the verdict, even laughing at the haters watching her downfall as things finally looked up again. Business was good, her baby was happy, and she was strictly focused on chasing her dreams. It started as a typical Tuesday, February 4th, 2026, over in Auburn, Gresham. She was riding shotgun in a white sedan on the 7900 block of South Main with 27-year-old Rico Suave driving. Their 13-month-old was buckled up tight in the rear safety seat. Where they parked is crucial because they were just yards from Street Sabina Parish, a long-standing pillar of the neighborhood. The avenue was bustling with afternoon traffic, pedestrians on the sidewalk, and folks handling their daily errands. It was the absolute last place anyone would expect a war zone to erupt. Right around 1:25 p.m., a trio of guys approached the car with weapons drawn and opened up immediately. A commuter heading home managed to capture the ensuing nightmare on their phone. The bystander hit record the second things looked sketchy, catching the moment the gunman lit up the sedan. They unloaded more than 50 shells into the car. It was absolutely nonstop aggression. Once they ran dry, they sprinted toward a red Alfa Romeo idling down the block. They didn't just flee, though. They wanted to ensure the job was finished. The getaway car swung around in front of the victims, and they blasted the wreckage a few more times before finally peeling out. In the mayhem, the white sedan slammed into a parked GMC van. The person in the van had nothing to do with the beef and walked away fine, just wrong place, wrong time. When the smoke cleared, the street was littered with brass, proving the insane scale of the violence. Gabrielle took several hits all over, leaving her in extremely critical condition. Rico caught some lead too, but it wasn't anything that would end his life. He was awake and talking to the paramedics on arrival, but the next detail is what really stunned the city. Unbelievably, the 13-month-old infant strapped in the rear safety seat didn't have a single scratch on her. One bystander who rushed to the wreck moments later mentioned seeing the tot in the back clutching a lollipop. First responders sped Gabrielle to OSF Little Company of Mary Hospital while she fought for her life in critical condition. Rico was transported to Advocate Chris Medical Center over in Oak Lawn and was stabilized quickly. Chicago's finest carefully pulled the child from the wreck to get her examined at the hospital just to be safe. It turned out she was completely physically untouched. Detectives estimated a barrage of over 50 rounds was fired by several gunmen based on the evidence. Miraculously, every single one of those slugs missed the child sitting right inside the vehicle they were destroying. This violence erupted practically on the doorstep of St. Sabina Church and its food bank. Leo High School is also nearby. Staff members at the pantry ducked into a back room the second the heavy gunfire started. Once the coast was clear, they ran out to assist the victims and helped retrieve that baby safely. The neighborhood is reeling, left wondering what could trigger such extreme brutality. Police wasted no time sweeping the area and tagging the dozens of shell casings littered on the ground. They also began pulling security tapes from local buildings and interviewing anyone who saw anything. A crucial clip recorded by an onlooker was handed to the police to help piece together exactly what went down. Figuring out the motive behind this attack became the primary focus for the investigation team. Authorities suspect the gunmen were aiming for Rico, the 27-year-old behind the wheel. When you spray that much lead, you simply cannot predict where those bullets are going to go. Gabrielle, who likely wasn't the intended target, ended up paying the ultimate price. Despite the best efforts of the trauma team, Gabrielle succumbed to her wounds and was pronounced dead. Rico pulled through and is on track to make a full physical recovery. Tragedy strikes the South Side as a young mother is gunned down, though her infant miraculously survived unharmed. Good morning to you all on this Thursday. I am Patrick Elwood, and sitting with me is Dina Baer. Thanks for tuning in. Angelica Sanchez is on the ground in Auburn Gresham with the latest updates on the case. Pat and Dina, people here are calling the baby's survival nothing short of a divine miracle. Witnesses actually found spent shell casings resting right inside the baby's car seat. There is now a cash reward for any tips that could lead to the shooter's capture. From the helicopter, you can see the white sedan riddled with holes where it crashed into a van on the 7900 block. Inside, police found two victims, a 26-year-old woman and a 27-year-old man. The woman died from her wounds, while the male victim is expected to live. It looks like a battlefield out here. Authorities identified the deceased as 26-year-old Gabrielle Eyes. Cook County Crime Stoppers has put up $10,000 for leads on the persons responsible for her murder. Several Good Samaritans stopped their cars or ran over to offer aid to the victims. To their amazement, they found the victim's daughter completely fine in her seat. Considering the damage to both sides of the car, it is unbelievable that the child wasn't hit. There must be a higher purpose for that little girl. The ambush occurred very close to St. Sabina Church and the neighborhood food pantry. Leo High School is also right there. Father Michael Flegger says he saw the aftermath and the footage of the soulless attack circulating online. These individuals just hopped out with long guns and started spraying bullets everywhere, man. The street was littered with brass casings. It was completely ridiculous and senseless. I don't know the origin of the beef, but they were clearly hunting that car regardless of the baby in the back. They simply had zero regard for human life. They fired recklessly into the vehicle and ended up robbing a young mother of her life. Police haven't caught them yet, so that $10,000 reward is crucial. Contact the department or remain anonymous via Crime Stoppers. Reporting live in Auburn, Gresham, Angelica Sanchez, WGN News. Not long after, a status update appeared claiming, "They tried to take my cousin out, but God protected him. Rico Suave, glad you're still with us." This message verified what detectives had already surmised. Rico walked away from a hit meant specifically for him. Locals familiar with Gabrielle, or folks simply exhausted by the endless bloodshed plaguing Chicago for decades, were fed up. They voiced their frustrations following Gabrielle's murder. And this is where the story turns incredibly dark. An archive status of Gabrielle's from November 21st, 2025 began circulating again after her passing. She had threatened to upload a photo of a rival's dead brother lying in his coffin, sparking furious arguments in the replies. One user challenged her, doubting she would actually do it and warning that Rico and an associate were handling business. She also pressed about whether Gabrielle's crew was getting dragged out of their vehicle during a failed mission. Gabrielle fired back, claiming, "My brother was abandoned during a hit." On that very day, she also declared she didn't give a damn if people leaked her address since she was relocating anyway. Reviewing these threads in light of the tragedy, folks began connecting the clues. These weren't just harmless online beefs. They contained promises of violence, payback, and legitimate danger. But there is a twist. As internet sleuths dug through her past, They also scrutinized Rico's timeline, and what they uncovered raised serious red flags. Back on February 14th, 2025, nearly a year prior to the attack, Rico shared a status painting, a grim portrait. It revealed a disturbing image regarding how he and Gabrielle were getting along. He wrote about asking Gabrielle to video call with their girl, but when she finally rang back 3 hours later, she was getting trashed. He vowed that if anybody tried playing games like that, he would empty 300 rounds into both them and her. That status instantly magnetized a swarm of replies, including one from Gabrielle herself saying, "You take me down." "Hawk, realize I'm returning." Another user chimed in, telling her to bring the heat. Additional replies were way more blunt. One person tagged Rico and said, "We finna handle her." Rico shot back, "She thinks it's a game." In other comments, he warned, "She's counting her days and won't get another shot at this." The truly chilling aspect is the implication of these messages when viewed through the lens of the murder a year later. It brings up some genuinely scary possibility. He promised no second chances, and the hit went down days before Valentine's, mirroring his timeline almost exactly. How did he walk away from that hail of bullets if the hit was truly meant for him? Just think about it. More than 50 shots riddle the vehicle, yet the supposed target survives with minor injuries while the passenger dies. That fact by itself provokes heavy suspicion. Did he actually orchestrate a plot against her, or was he caught in a completely different mess? Maybe a situation disconnected from their romance and rooted entirely in street warfare. On December 27th, 2025, Rico posted, "Long live Threeski. Consequences happen every time you speak on my name." The sequence of events becomes more alarming when reviewing the days immediately preceding the ambush. On February 3rd, 2026, the day before the attack, Rico shouted, "You cowards! Free Marley! Free Demon!" It felt aggressive, as if he was challenging specific enemies directly. Gabrielle's last online activity happened that same day, February 3rd, 2026. She shared a quote saying, "I stay humble because I've seen people mock others, then become the very joke they laughed at." 24 hours later, she was fighting for survival in that white sedan. Now, this is what really sparked rumors. At 5:58 p.m. on February 4th, 2026, mere hours after Gabrielle died, Rico updated his status, "Don't put me last, knowing I'd be the first to risk it all for you." This update appeared roughly 4.5 hours after the attack, 4.5 hours after she was rushed to the ER, and 4.5 hours after he took a bullet. Was there a hidden meaning? Was he signaling the people who did it? A declaration that he survived and remained dangerous, or was it something deeper? Locals began asking tough questions. Sleuths revisited his threat from February 14th, 2025, threatening to put 300 rounds in Gabrielle. Look at the dates. He issued the warning on Valentine's, and then on February 4th, 2026, 10 days pre-holiday, the shooting occurred. Neighbors started voicing their doubts publicly. If the hit was on him, why bring his girl and their baby along for the ride? If he was fully aware that he had heat in the streets, if he knew folks were hunting him down, why would he place them in such danger? Plus, there is that whole other perspective that people simply cannot overlook. Recall that upload from 12 months prior where he claimed she would not get a second shot, and where strangers in the comment section were discussing how to take her out completely, where he explicitly stated real repercussions were coming. Was this the hood finally catching up to him while Gabrielle just happened to get caught in the crossfire? Or was this actually the climax of a situation that had been brewing for an entire year? A conflict that originated with those menacing threats back on Valentine's Day 2025? The official inquiry into Gabrielle's murder is currently still active. No suspects have been put in handcuffs yet, and detectives are still grinding to identify the gunman and determine the true motive behind the assault. The visual evidence we have is undeniable. The security footage recovered from the adjacent buildings is crystal clear. The accounts from bystanders sketch out a vivid picture of the events. However, the underlying reason for it all remains a mystery. Detectives secured the mobile video from a witness who taped the ambush. They also have over 50 bullet casings bagged and collected from the crime scene. They managed to capture the red Alfa Romeo on the digital recording. Furthermore, they have multiple people who watched 3 armed guys walk right up to that white vehicle and start blasting away. What they are missing is a solid response to the question everybody has been asking since February 4th. Who ordered this hit and for what reason? The local residents have been loud and clear about demanding justice for Gabrielle. Father Michael Flegger and members of St. Sabina Parish have pleaded for anyone holding clues to speak up. The Godfather, Kirk Bell, discussed the sheer pointlessness of this brutality. What is the purpose of firing into a vehicle when you are fully aware there is a child inside? That defies all logic, right? It could have been so many other individuals who ended up losing their lives out here today. How Gabrielle was a stunning young woman with a gorgeous baby whose journey was cut short for causes nobody can truly comprehend. This situation right here is just beyond belief. This girl was a lovely soul with a lovely kid, and her existence was snatched away for what purpose? However, in scenarios like this, where online updates hint at one narrative while street politics point elsewhere, finding the facts gets tricky. Folks out here definitely have their own hypotheses. A few are convinced Rico was the intended mark and Gabrielle was accidental collateral. Others review those past uploads and question if the plot runs deeper. The reality stands that 3 men approached that car while the sun was out, unloaded over 50 rounds, hopped back into a red Alfa Romeo, drove around to face the vehicle again, and let off even more shots before fleeing. That degree of ferocity, that quantity of bullets, and that sort of bold assault at noon right next to a sanctuary, it points to a vendetta that is personal and profound. Detectives are currently putting the puzzle together. They are combing through Rico's digital footprint. They are analyzing Gabrielle's uploads and the conversations she engaged in during the months prior to her passing. They are hunting for any trails connected to that red Alfa Romeo. They are chatting with neighborhood folks who might know something about who had a problem with Rico or who might have held a grudge against Gabrielle. Yet at this exact moment, those 3 gunmen remain at large, and the reasoning is still formally classified as unknown. The truth is that incidents like this reveal a reality that many folks simply refuse to discuss. When you are tied to a person living that street life with active enemies who post wild threats online and calls guys out, you become a target as well, even if you are not the specific person they are hunting. A few residents in the area have stated it plainly. If you are aware your partner is in hot water and you know folks are tracking him down, why would you hop into a ride with him, especially when you have your infant sitting in the rear? It is a valid inquiry, yet the answer is complex. Because partnerships are never that black and white. Love is not that straightforward. And occasionally folks fail to grasp how severe the peril is until the clock runs out. Gabrielle's narrative is not solely about her. It represents every female who has ever been trapped in the crosshairs of hood conflicts that she had zero part in creating. It stands for every mom who has faced the dilemma of choosing between devotion to a partner and the safety of herself and her kid. And it highlights a broken system that permits this sort of brutality to persist, where 3 guys can stroll up to a vehicle while the sun is shining, discharge over 50 bullets next to a house of worship with an infant in the back, and simply speed off. The Auburn-Gresham district has witnessed way too much of this. Chicago has endured far too much of this. Households destroyed, kids abandoned without guardians, neighborhoods left scarred by aggression that seems to have no end. Father Flegger put it perfectly when he mentioned the gunman possessing no souls. It is a divine wonder that the infant was not hit, a total miracle. So they observed, the guy and the lady riddled with bullets in the auto. As they attempted to pull the child out, officers grabbed the infant right away, and a female deputy cradled the child in her cruiser, likely wondering how anyone could be so cold. What kind of monster unloads a clip into a vehicle when there is a good chance a baby is strapped into the back seat? They doubled back to squeeze off even more shots, showing a level of ruthlessness that is absolutely impossible to comprehend. A 13-month-old is left facing the world motherless, having lived through an ambush that by all rights should have ended her life. More than 50 slugs shredded that sedan, yet amazingly, not one piece of lead grazed her skin, leaving many to whisper about guardian angels. You can call it luck or divine grace, but supernatural shielding does not reverse death or return a parent to a grieving child. This kid has to mature with the heavy burden of knowing her mom took her last breath just a few feet away in the front seat. Her childhood will be haunted by the fact that the brutal final moments of her mother's life are circulating forever on the internet. As she ages, she will encounter conflicting stories about that day, and eventually, the inevitable hard questions will start coming. She will demand to understand why a trio of gunmen approached their vehicle with the sole intention of slaughtering everyone inside. One of her biggest questions will certainly be whether or not the bullets were actually meant for her dad all along. Wondering if the tragedy was avoidable will plague her, even though clarity may never come, especially since Rico is still walking this earth. Doctors expect him to bounce back completely from his wounds, yet he has to carry the heavy emotional weight of that afternoon. Now he faces the task of rearing a girl who was present and watching when her mom was violently taken from her. Explaining those old social media uploads where he vowed to pump 300 shots into Gabrielle and denied her a second chance won't be easy. Detectives are currently working overtime to determine if he set this up or if he was the mark and she was just collateral damage. The truth behind those motives remains a puzzle that law enforcement is painstakingly trying to piece together right now. Locals are suspicious and demanding answers, largely because it seems awfully convenient that Rico made it out alive while Gabrielle perished. Furthermore, everyone is stuck wondering what on earth possessed Gabrielle to be riding in that specific vehicle on that day. If he was aware of the hits out on him and was trash talking online recently, why bring his baby mama and infant along for the ride? A few folks speculate that he genuinely believed the threats were empty and that nothing tragic would actually go down. Many argue he was acting with total disregard for their safety, selfishly using them as shields or just not caring about the risk. Reviewing his past uploads makes some wonder if this was a setup he orchestrated, though we may never uncover the whole truth. The undeniable reality is that a mom is gone, a dad remains, and a child's future is forever darkened by this brutal event. Gabrielle Ayers was just 26, a young entrepreneur who had successfully launched her own commercial venture. Above all else, she was a devoted parent who cherished her little girl more than life itself. Only weeks prior, she had joyfully thrown a first birthday bash, though she had her flaws and run-ins with the law like anyone else. She engaged in internet feuds and occasionally found herself mixed up in scenarios that were obviously hazardous to her safety. Yet, she was actively striving to construct a stable foundation and a legacy for her offspring to inherit one day. This murder highlights how fleeting life is, proving that bullets have no prejudice and bad company can lead to a premature grave. We are starkly reminded that what you type into a status update often carries severe, real-world repercussion. Digital threats aren't merely text on a screen. The disputes and rivalries we fuel online eventually manifest in physical reality. Those virtual arguments have a nasty habit of bleeding into the streets, often with fatal outcomes for those involved. It also underscores how domestic abuse and gang warfare blur together, raising the question of whether her baby daddy put a hit on her. Could it be that she was simply an innocent bystander in a turf war, or perhaps a twisted combination of both scenarios? Finding the truth behind these mysteries is absolutely critical for her grieving relatives and the daughter she left behind. Observers, however, can take away a straightforward message. Gun violence impacts far more than just the immediate victims. It ripples through neighborhoods, scars onlookers for life, and creates a generation of orphans wondering where their parents went. These acts ignite endless loops of payback that can plague families and blocks for decades to come. The only reason that little girl is still breathing today is due to what many can only describe as divine intervention. Yet she has no mother, because disputes were left to fester until 3 gunmen felt bold enough to spray 50 rounds in public. Detectives are still working the case and following up on leads. The perpetrators remain at large, leaving a void where the truth about the motives and mechanics of the crime should be. While the planet turns and bloodshed continues, tragedies like this serve as a grim warning to never overlook red flags. It is simply too dangerous to brush off internet intimidation as empty rhetoric. We cannot gamble with our safety or the lives of our family members simply because we assume we are immune to misfortune. Always remain vigilant. You must rely on your intuition while keeping a close watch on the individuals nearby and the environment you occupy. Frequently, the thin line separating survival from fatality is simply identifying a hazard before it becomes inescapable. Although Gabrielle was denied that possibility, Her experience must act as a critical alert for the rest of society. Rest in peace, Gabrielle Ayers. Our hearts go out to her entire family, her young child, and every single individual who held her dear. We also hope for righteousness, for the truth to surface, and for a cessation of the vicious aggression that stole her future. Anyone possessing knowledge of this crime, specifically regarding the 3 shooters or that red Alfa Romeo, must contact the Chicago Police Department. Do not let this fade into an unsolved mystery. We must ensure Gabrielle did not pass in vain. Thank you for spending time with True Crime Tragedy. Be sure to tap the like button, post your opinions in the comments section, and subscribe to ensure you catch the upcoming story. I will see you all very soon. It is absolutely incredible that the infant didn't take a hit during that barrage. Pure luck. A young mom lost her life in a vehicle ambush on the south side, yet authorities confirmed her child made it out without a scratch. Everyone is saying it is nothing short of a blessing that the little one is still here. Over 50 rounds shredded that sedan while a 13-month-old sat there untouched. But we need to face the hard truth. Divine intervention doesn't solve crimes. Over 50 rounds were fired into that car by 3 men who showed up with weapons drawn in broad daylight. Her 13-month-old daughter sat in the back seat, holding a lollipop, and somehow survived without a scratch. Gabrielle did not. Detectives believe the shooters came for the man behind the wheel, someone who had been posting threats online, calling out enemies, and broadcasting a dangerous life. For anyone following along to see, Gabrielle was not the target. But bullets do not check names. Online threats are not just words. When someone posts, consequences are coming. That is a timeline, not an empty caption. The people closest to someone living that life are always in the line of fire, whether they chose that world or not. If someone in your life is attracting dangerous enemies, making public threats, or living recklessly, your proximity to them is a risk to you and everyone depending on you. A child deserves a mother who comes home. That has to matter more than loyalty to the wrong situation. Gabrielle's daughter will grow up asking questions no child should ever have to ask. Let her story be the reason someone else makes a different choice today. Rest in peace, Gabrielle. Your daughter carries your name forward when street life takes an innocent life. Gabrielle Ayers was 26 years old, a beauty shop owner, a mother, a woman building something real. On an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in Chicago, she rode in a white sedan with her partner and their baby girl. She never made it home.